All right, let's dive into a story you probably haven't heard before. It's the hidden story of our digital world. And get this? It doesn't start with silicon chips in a lab. Nope. It starts way back in the 17th century with a question about the human soul.
So let's just jump right in with a wild question. Are you, really just made of zeros and ones? Sounds like something out of the Matrix, right? Well, the true story is, believe it or not, even stranger.
Think about the device you're watching this on right now. Your phone, your computer, whatever it is. Everything it does, everything, from playing this video to sending a quick text, it all comes down to a super simple code. A switch. It's either on or it's off. 1 or 0. That's it. That's the basic heartbeat of, well, our entire modern world.
But where did that idea even come from? Who first thought of building a world out of just two numbers? Your first guess is probably, some engineer in a lab coat in the 20th century. But the real answer is so much older and, honestly, way cooler. We've got to travel back in time, back to the mind of a philosopher.
And that brings us to our guy, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a dreamer from the 1600s who, it turns out, pretty much invented our digital world.
Now, Leibniz, he was an absolute genius, a total polymath. But back in his day, people kind of thought he had his head in the clouds. He was seen as this dreamer, totally lost in these huge, abstract ideas. He wasn't the guy building practical things. He was the guy wrestling with the biggest questions you can imagine, like what is reality? And we can actually peek right into his brain thanks to his own writings. He wrote this in 1698. Listen to this. All spirits are units. One may say that God is the primitive unity. You hear that? He's talking about spirits, God, this idea of unity. He's not thinking about machines. He's trying to figure out the very fabric of reality. For Leibniz, the number 1, well, it wasn't just a number, it was God, the source of everything.
And this is so important to get. Leibniz wasn't trying to build a better calculator, not at all. His goal was way bigger. He was trying to draw a map of creation, the actual, logical, spiritual blueprint of the entire universe.
So, how in the world did he go about doing that? Well, this is where his massive philosophical dream starts to look surprisingly familiar. It's what you might call the divine binary.
Okay, so according to Leibniz, how was everything, made? His idea was both incredibly simple and totally profound. He said that everything that exists comes from a combination of just two things. First, you have unity, which for him was basically God, this positive creative force. And the second thing? Pure nothingness. He even had a special word for this nothingness. He called it the privative. The best way to think about it is like a limit or a boundary. You know how a statue is formed by chipping away the stone that isn't the statue? That's kind of the idea. He thought every single thing is defined by its limits, by what it's not. It's a really deep thought, right? That's how things get their shape and identity.
And to boil this whole huge idea down, Leibniz did something amazing. He designed this really cool emblem. The motto on it basically says, "The one made all things from nothing." It's his entire philosophy in one single image. Unity, creating everything out of the void.
Okay, let's take a closer look at this thing, because it's genius. Right in the middle, what do you see? A 1 and a 0 joined together. That's unity and nothingness. Then they're inside a circle, which stands for omnia. That's Latin for all things. And if you step back, the whole shape looks a lot like the Greek letter phi, the symbol for philosophy. Come on. That's his entire worldview packed right into one little symbol. So cool.
All right, you've been patient. Now for the big payoff. Let's connect this wild 17th century philosophical dream to the phone that's probably in your hand right now. This is where we jump from pure philosophy to pixels.
Just look at this. Side by side, it's mind-blowing. In Leibniz's world, 1 is unity, the divine something, 0 is nothingness, the nothing. Now look at computing. 1 is on, there's an electrical signal. 0 is off, there isn't. It's the exact same logic. Presence and absence, something and nothing. That's how our computers do everything. Every letter you type, every color on this screen, it's just a long string of these on and off switches. Infinite complexity from the simplest possible idea. It's literally the same structure, centuries apart.
So, let's be clear. Leibniz didn't invent the microchip, obviously. But what he did do was create the way of thinking that makes it all possible. He was the one who first forged this incredible link between logic, numbers, and a grand philosophical idea.
He drew up the philosophical blueprint for the very logic that, hundreds of years later, would run our entire planet.
And that brings us to the big takeaway here, the idea that thought itself can cast a very, very long shadow.
And this quote really says it all, doesn't it? Philosophy is about asking the biggest, deepest questions. The goal isn't always to build something practical, but every now and then, the answer to one of those deep questions ends up having these huge, practical results that nobody, not even a genius like Leibniz, could have possibly seen coming.
And wow, what a result this was. Just think about that for a second. An idea that started as a way to understand God and the universe, a purely spiritual, theological idea, somehow became the blueprint for our entire information age. That is an absolutely wild journey for an idea to take over 300 years.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If a philosopher's dream about God gave us the computer, what are the philosophical dreams happening right now that are building the world of tomorrow? What big, abstract ideas about ethics or consciousness or the nature of reality are being talked about today that might, 300 years from now, be the foundation of everything? What's their long shadow going to be?